Welcome to Level Up Tribes. Level Up Tribes provides resources to help you attain the necessary resources to level up your mind, body, and soul and realize your full potential. It is about exploring, learning, providing you with the tools from the experts for you to create a better version of yourself. I am your host, Agnes Goodwine, and welcome, Tribes. Welcome to Level Up Tribes, Queen. I'm so happy that you're joining me today so we can talk about your journey, everything yoga. Please share with us how you discovered yoga and what led you to becoming a yoga teacher.
Absolutely. First, I want to thank you for inviting me on your podcast. I'm really excited to share my journey and this beautiful practice of yoga with the world. So about 6 years ago on my birthday, which is July 14th, coming up,
Okay.
I walked into a yoga studio as a part of my relaxing day. I had scheduled a full day of pedicures and manicures and movies, and I said, oh, let's do yoga too. And I walked out with a 30-day class pass. I was hooked from day one. And
Awesome.
After those 30 days of going, I was intentional about going very frequent because I wanted to know more about this practice. And after those 30 days, I created a space in my budget for a monthly contract. Practicing yoga at a studio sometimes is not cheap, so I had to look at my budget, and it was worth it for me. And I have fallen in love with this beautiful practice of breath and movement. It really resonated with me. I found strength, and that's not just physically, but mentally and spiritually through yoga. And I knew that I wanted to share this with the world. It took me some years to finally say I wanted to become a yoga teacher because that was scary in itself.
Yeah.
But when I think about all of the benefits and all of the things that yoga has done for my life, and physically as well. I work out a lot, and yoga, just the restorative, has truly helped me. But it also has helped me build strength.
Okay.
And, for mentally and spiritually, I met God on my mat. I've been a Christian all my life, but when I started to practice yoga, I found a space of silence, of quiet. And I found that it was in those moments when I could truly hear God. And it was really a beautiful thing. I also struggle with depression and anxiety, and yoga has become one of my avenues to help me with that. So it was just this all around beautiful practice that I wanted to share with my community.
Yes, beautiful. What shifted between you going to yoga and then deciding to be a yoga teacher?
I just knew that this was a practice that my people could benefit from.
Okay.
As we spoke before, and when I looked around the room, I didn't see myself. Not only in the people that were there practicing with me, but also in the teachers that were leading the practice. And I know that, there are a lot of times that we shy away from yoga. One of the reasons is because we don't see ourselves in the practice.
Yes.
So I wanted to be that visual representation to say, Black people do yoga, Black curvy women do yoga.
Yes.
Right? And it's accessible to everybody and body type. When we think of yoga, sometimes we think of the inversions and the handstands and folding yourself up like a pretzel, and that's not what it is. And I just really wanted to be a visual representation of what yoga is for me, and hoping that it can help heal other people in the journey.
Yes. What was the biggest takeaway during your yoga training experience?
My 200-hour was very small. It was just 3 of us.
Oh, wow.
It was the first one that the studio that I was at had. And this was a studio that I was actually an intern at. And I told them, yeah, I'm going to, do yoga teacher training in like 3 years. And then the next month they was like, Quinn, we have one coming up in January. So let's go ahead and so it, like, my 3 years quickly turned into, okay, in 2 months, very fast, because it just seemed like it was the perfect time. So small was probably what I needed at the time, a small training. I was very self-conscious about my body and my physical ability, that I didn't think that I would be comfortable learning in a large group, especially if it was going to be a large group of very skinny young white women, right? So
Yes.
it's small as what I needed. I truly learned, I mean, we learned everything about yoga, but that was the moment where I really learned and loved my body and what my body could do, and find grace and space for what I was not able to do yet. And learn
Okay.
that just because my body wasn't able to do it doesn't mean that I couldn't lead other people in doing it if that's what they desired.
Yes.
I was truly challenged mentally, and just learning to be comfortable with myself and what I had to offer as a yoga teacher, and truly understanding that it was what I had to offer as
Yes.
queen. Queen doesn't
Yes.
have to be like any other type of yoga teacher. And I may not be your yoga teacher, and that's okay.
Right.
After I finished my 200 hour, I enrolled in a 100 hour of holy yoga, which is a Christian
Oh,
based yoga. And that was different because it was online for 6 weeks. And then we had a 1 week immersion in the mountains of Arizona.
no way.
Yes.
Oh,
Yes. And it was intense. I thought my 200 hour was intense. This was very intense. That 1 week immersion was 12 to 15-hour days full of Bible study, meditation, yoga, anatomy, tears, laughter,
oh my
headache,
God.
everything in between. It was beautiful. I left that mountain as a different person.
It's beautiful.
I know that God put me there at that moment, at that time, with those people for a reason. It was so
Never
beautiful.
heard of holy yoga. Is that an international training or?
It is. So it is.
Okay.
It's actually, a lot of the leaders are based out of Phoenix.
Really? Oh,
Yeah, so
I'm gonna
you
have
can
to check that
probably
out.
yeah, you can probably find a bunch of holy yoga classes there. So it is a organization, and it's, I mean, it's Christian yoga. It's just yoga Bible study.
Okay.
The postures are the same, the asanas are the same. A sun A salutation is a sun A salutation. We just, speak the word of God, and, play worship music while we're doing yoga, and pray while we're doing yoga. And it's truly a beautiful practice.
Oh, I love that. I love that. And because we're on that topic of holy yoga, I had a question for you, and I think I'm going to ask you this question now since we're in that topic. Many African Americans fear exploring the practice of yoga because they may view it as anti-Christian. What do you feel can be done to educate while bringing awareness to this beautiful practice that may help people of color, like we spoke before, with trauma, healing, and discovering their own authentic selves, while still preserving that Christian practice? This is a perfect example that you just gave with holy yoga, which I never heard before, that can be implemented.
Absolutely. This is probably one of my favorite questions that I'm ever asked when we speak about yoga. I think the first thing I believe can be done is educating our people on the roots and the principles of yoga. The physical practice, asana is only 1/8 of yoga. There are 8 limbs of yoga, and the physical practice is only 1/8 of that. But it's what we see, so it's what we focus on.
Yeah.
There's so much depth to this practice. The very first thing that I learned when I stepped into my 200 yoga teacher training is yoga is not a religion. That was the very
Yes.
first sentence in my manual. And it's important that we understand the roots of yoga so we can truly understand that statement. So while we may see yoga integrated in religions like Hinduism, that's not where yoga originated. Yoga came first. The practice of yoga came first, and then founders or whomever of different religions started to implement the practice into their religion. Yoga literally translates to union, and there are 3 different systems in yoga. There's the breath, the physical postures, and meditation. No one religion owns how I breathe, move, and focus. So as for me and my house, I will serve the Lord. So when I breathe and when I move, my focus is always on Christ. I think that bringing the scriptures into your physical practice, it is a beautiful experience. And until I truly believe it starts with learning about what is yoga. And when I go, I open myself to teach like private lessons to Bible study groups and things like that. That's the first thing that I start with. Before we even start moving, I want to educate you on what yoga is and what it is not. Because once you do that, that removes any blockage that you have from your heart, from your mind, and you can truly be open to experiencing what God has for you in this moment while we move and while we breathe. I've actually started a study on the yamas and niyamas and how they align with the Christian principles.
Really?
And I can't wait to share that once.
Oh, I cannot wait to read it. The Yamas and the Yamas is the book that I'm reading for my training. I would love to read what you write about.
When I was studying, when I went through my 200 hour and we were reading about the yamas and niyamas, I was like, so this is like the 10 commandments? Like, the principles of yogas align with the Christian principles. And if we're honest, it aligns with just moral principles, in general. So, I mean, when we think about what yoga is as a whole and not just focus on those physical postures, I think you open yourself up to a world of possibilities. And I truly want to share that with people of color, but definitely Christians.
So what would you say, Queen, what's your mission as a yoga instructor? Because I thought I read that you were going to open a center right before COVID happened.
Well, I was going to start I have. I mean, it started my own yoga company.
Yes.
So it was just going to be a company. Well, it is a company. Words matter, right?
Right.
Where I will offer classes, offer private lessons, group sessions, and things like that. So pre-COVID, I had my launch party planned, invitations out, guest list, caterer, like it was like happening in a couple of weeks.
Oh my God.
And, had to cancel it. Of course, that was really devastating, but there's still other ways that I can serve the community. So that's really what I'm focusing on right now. But I would say that my mission for yoga, I'll start with like the demographic that I feel like God has led me to. And I truly believe that God has called me to the African-American Christian community.
Okay.
There are so many benefits to yoga, mentally, spiritually, physically. And I feel like the Black Christian community is missing out due to the lack of knowledge and understanding of the practice. And I truly believe that God has called me to bridge that gap. The name of my yoga company is called Sacred Spaces.
Oh, nice.
And I believe that God is going to use me to create these sacred spaces for people to connect with Him, connect with themselves, and connect with others.
Yes. It's been really hard for, the yoga community or any fitness business during COVID because everything has shifted, online.
Yeah.
So are you thinking about having like online classes in the future or maybe I don't know. How do you, because some people are comfortable, online, some people are not. So what's your thought on it?
I'm really just looking at my business plan and looking to see what I can offer. I was working at a yoga studio and literally like 2 weeks into COVID, they decided to shut their doors for good.
For good?
For good.
Oh, no.
We were like a week or two into quarantine, and I was like, "Wait, we're not gonna," because every other company or every other studio was shifting to offering classes online, and I thought we were gonna start having that conversation, but it was like, "No, we're just gonna, close." And I was like, "Okay." But to be honest with you, right now, as the world is starting to open back up, I'm glad that I don't have to decide whether I'm comfortable or not to go teach in the studio.
Fair. That's fair. Yeah.
I'm happy about that. I For the month of May, I did offer classes once a week online. I was raising money for NAMI, which is a mental illness organization that I volunteer with.
Okay.
So I was offering classes once a week to raise money for that. And I had good response.
Good.
I had a lot of regulars.
Okay.
And I had people, to be honest with you, it really opened my eyes to, I had people that I would have never touched because they're not in Houston.
Okay.
So I am open to the possibility. I don't know.
Still thinking about it.
Yeah, I like collective breathing. I like being with people, but I also know that, I'm trying to figure out how to operate in the new normal.
Yes.
I also want to see the people. So I'm like, let me get my technology right. Let me, be able to put my screen on the TV so I can see everybody, because I want everybody to be safe.
Right.
And things like that. So I think I'll start, looking
baby
into
steps.
The technology piece. Yeah, the technology. Yeah. Everything has to be perfect before I can do it. Right. I just, want to be as comfortable as possible when I'm doing it.
I know. I think that was the biggest thing for me. When I first started, I go to the businesses and interview the people, and I love that interaction face to face. I just thrive on that. And then when all of this happened in March and I had to shift to Zoom meetings, I'm like, how am I going to do this? I'm not even technology savvy to even start this. And so I was very uncomfortable. But to be honest, Queen, stepping out of my comfort zone, I have met the most beautiful people. Yeah. I mean, look at you, like you're in Houston. You know what I mean? Like, so, I've met people I've interviewed this lady from Canada. Yeah. And so in a way, I'm grateful for COVID because it did shift and reset something in me in regards to stepping out of my comfort zone. Like I don't need to know everything. Just get out there and just do it. So I'm learning in the process. And if I mess up, I just mess up. And
that's what I did for May. I was like, okay, we're just going to offer this.
Right.
Yeah, and now I did it. I'm kind of like, okay, now I know what I want to have in place before I, started again. So
absolutely. Well, I can't wait. Do you have a Facebook page?
So mostly Instagram.
Okay.
So my personal Instagram is That's Queen to You, and my business Instagram is Sacred Spaces Yoga.
Awesome. Have you encountered any struggles while running your yoga practice as an African American woman?
I don't know if I can say I've experienced any struggles, but I have had some uncomfortable moments. So when I went to the Holy Yoga Immersion, I was one of 2 Black women there amongst at least 200 white people or white women, maybe like 3 men, maybe. At the time, I had short, fire red hair. I have tattoos. I have piercings. I wear big glasses. I'm curvy. I go by Queen. I talk a lot. People were drawn to me, and a lot of us had already virtually met because we had spent 6 weeks together virtually. Okay. So I had a lot of people that were waiting to meet me, which was a little uncomfortable as well, but people were drawn to me, and in their curiosity there was some uncomfortable conversations as they tried to find ways to connect with me. And it was always connecting with me through their Black friends or some type of, trying to find common ground through Black culture. And, I had so many people wanting to connect me with their Black friends because you guys are so much alike. And I was like, is it just because we're Black and we yoga? Right. Like, what does that mean? Or I had one woman telling me about, just randomly coming up to me and telling me about her like cousin who married a Black man and had an African themed wedding. I was like, what does that have to, I'm eating. Like, what does that have to do with anything? And it just seems like the white women in this practice, they try so hard to relate to us. And I think it's because they don't want to seem like they can't relate to us. And the intentions are probably good, but sometimes it just like gives very side-eye vibes, like you can talk to me about anything else. And
Yeah.
that's what I experience a lot sometimes, even when I, was teaching at a yoga studio, making connections there. And a lot of times people would just like randomly want to, bust out with some type of Black experience. And I'm like, are you just telling me that because I'm, Black and you want to relate to me? So, I mean, it's more so just having uncomfortable moments where you kind of side eye people, just really trying to
Right.
understand what their intentions are. And sometimes it's just ignorance, like they just don't know. But I don't know if I can say that I've had any struggles. Any
Okay.
struggles.
Good. What has been the most inspirational moment you've experienced so far?
I can really think of two inspirational moments. The very first one is the very first class I taught at a studio. The studio I used to teach, my very first class. There was one Black lady in the class. And after the class, she came up to me and she said, I want you to know that I specifically came to this class because when I looked at the schedule online, I saw a Black woman was leading it. And, I've had that moment.
Yeah.
I've had that moment where I looked at a schedule and was like, oh, who's this Black woman? Let me go to her class. So
Right.
that moment was special for me. It validated that there's a need for someone who looks like me in this industry, in those rooms, not just practicing, but leading. So that was
Absolutely.
a very special moment for me. The second one is when my spiritual mentor and a woman that I highly admire, she had suddenly lost her husband. And she asked me to lead her in a private holy yoga session.
Mm.
And that was big for me because in the moment of her grieving, I didn't know how to not help her, but just, how to be there for her.
Okay.
And that was how I could be there for her. And yoga became a part of her grieving process.
Wow.
And I'll never forget the fact that God gave me the skills and the avenues to help her find peace, even if it was in those 30 minutes that we were in, our
Right.
practice. Those were 30 minutes where she found some peace and she found some rest. And
Okay.
I knew that, God had led me to her. And I was so grateful that she asked me, to lead her. And I was intentional with leaving her with breathing techniques and
Yes.
things to, help her rest, and, just different things that she could do to help her throughout her day when she has
Yes.
anxiety, and, how to breathe from your belly, and, just giving
Yes.
her different things that outside of our session she could take with her. And that
Yes.
was a really big inspirational moment for me.
Do you treat if if you have someone that is depressed and then you have someone that is suffering from anxiety, and I haven't studied this yet, but is there like different breathing techniques or mindfulness techniques for each one of those, or can we use the same breathing techniques for both of them, just in case someone's listening and they're suffering from anxiety or they're suffering from depression? What would you recommend for them?
Yeah, no, that's really good. I think you can use the same technique, maybe just whatever mantra they decide to use may be different.
Okay.
Um, a lot of it comes from breathing from your belly, deep belly breaths, because whether it's anxiety or whether it's depression, it stems from our mind, our thoughts, right? So our thoughts are all over the place, or our thoughts are telling us lies and things like that. And when we are intentional with breathing from our belly, taking full belly breaths, filling all the way up, exhaling all the way out, scientifically, you slow down your mind. And when you do that, you can start to compartmentalize what are the lies and what is the truth. And from there, you choose what you want to believe, right? Because now you know the truth, and you choose what you want to believe. So a lot of times when I'm doing any type of breath work, I invite people to have some type of mantra, whatever it is that they want to focus on. If I'm doing holy yoga, maybe it's a scripture, or maybe it's, a name of God that you need in that moment. So maybe it's just the different sayings, or whatever your intention is may be different, but the breath
Yes.
is doing the same thing.
Okay. So what do you teach the most? Is it flow or foundations? What do you find yourself teaching the most?
I find myself teaching flow the most.
Okay.
I really want to get into teaching like the roots and the principles and different workshops and things like that. But I do teach flow the
Okay.
most. Now I do start my practice out with meditation, and we end with meditation. So I love pranayama. So I love teaching breath work. So we always start with breath work and we always end with breath work, but we move in the middle. And sometimes, like when I taught at the studio, we moved. Okay, it was a I taught level 2 classes, so
What?
heated classes too. So I
Okay,
tell
that's
people all the
beautiful.
time, you can come to my yoga studio if you think yoga is easy. Let me work you real quick.
Oh, I love it. So, was it hard for you to find your teacher voice?
It wasn't for me. And I think it wasn't for me because in my 9 to 5, I'm actually a trainer.
Okay.
So, teaching and training and being in front of people and leading was came natural to me. I think the biggest thing for me that I had to get over was even with leading or teaching a level 2 class, I had to teach things that was not in my practice yet.
Okay.
Inversions and things like that, that's not in my practice yet.
Okay.
So I had, but I taught it because people came to that class for that, right?
Wow.
So this practice is not about me. So if I'm going to decide to teach a level 2 class, I have to give the people what they came for, right? So I
Yes.
think that was the biggest thing, is feeling like I was good enough to teach that class, even though my practice wasn't like their practice.
Okay.
But I also had beginners come to that class because it was heated. So it's also catering to those who are saying, and saying, hey, I know that person over there is in the forearm stand. Guess what? I can't do that either. But here are some drills that we can do, right? So not only giving the advanced yogis what they wanted, but, helping the beginners find comfort in being in that room. So that was rewarding as well. But I did have to get over that. That was very hard for me at first.
Really? So, how was your first class?
My first class was pretty good. So the what I struggled with the most at the beginning was time. I would have like 10 minutes left and I'd be like, we can either stay in Savasana for 10 more minutes or you got to go.
Oh,
So
I love
finding
it.
my rhythm was really hard.
But it comes with practice, right? That's what I
Yeah,
keep.
it comes
That's
with practice.
that's what I
But
keep
the good
hearing.
thing is, though, I practiced at that studio. Like I was a part of that community. I interned there and I practiced there, so I had already had a relationship with some of the people there. So that was
Okay.
good. So before I actually took over a class. So before I spent like 2 weeks just going to the class to see the people that came to the class and building that relationship so that when I took over the class they would continue to come, right? So but yeah, I mean it was I had a great time. I love teaching at studio. I had a great time teaching at studio. I had making playlists. I was known for my playlists.
Oh, really?
I had a really great time, but I think now I'm truly thinking about, do I want to go back to a studio?
Okay.
And if I do, I have to make sure that that studio, what is their stance on Black Lives Matter,
Yes.
right? How do they support their Black teachers, and do they
Yes.
have Black teachers?
Yes.
Like
Right.
it's all of these things. I'm right now. I'm looking at yoga studios. I've been paying attention to how they respond in this time on their social
Yes.
media or on their website, not just about
Yes.
Black Lives Matter, but with COVID.
Right.
How did you,
Both.
yeah, like how did you support your teachers during that time?
Right. And
So
that's one of my questions to you today. What do you think is the most defining issue facing the global yoga community as it relates to Black Lives Matter movement? So let's dive in a little bit in regards to that topic. because I know you're very passionate about this.
Yes.
You know, for people that don't know and yogis that are listening to this episode that are not part of that movement, what can they do?
That's a good question. So honestly, many of my white friends come from the yoga world. So like I said, during this time, I've been paying very close attention to how they're reacting to the Black Lives Matter movement. And it's been a little frustrating or a little underwhelming. So when we think about the yoga principles, right, we think about the 8 limbs of yoga and the yamas. The second yama is satya, and that means truthfulness. Mm-hmm. So that's what comes to mind. We always talk about taking yoga off the mat, right? So how can we take these principles and apply them in the real world? And I think that principle of truthfulness is what the global white yoga community is lacking during this time. So not only truthfulness to others, but specifically truthfulness to themselves. So I believe the first thing that people need to do is be honest with themselves. And that may require some deep soul searching, and it may not be pretty. Actually, it shouldn't be pretty. Right. And it should be very hard work. So being truthful about how you benefit from white privilege, being truthful about the microaggression or blatant racism or racist statements that you've said or that you thought, being truthful about while you may think that you live a non-racist lifestyle, maybe you don't really live an anti-racist lifestyle. Yes. Right? Even though you may not say those things. Did grandpa call somebody the N-word and you didn't correct him? Yes. Right? So really being truthful about and honest about yourself and your thought process and your morals and, you know, the things that you acknowledge and the things that you accept and the things that you allow to happen around you. I think that acknowledging those things and other truthful facts is the first step towards the hard and necessary work that needs to be done in the yoga community to lead us to healing. Yes. And if the yoga community continues to ignore those hard truths and attempt to cloud it with its false sense of love and light, we're never truly going to advance as a collective. Yes. Yoga studio owners, being truthful about the fact that you don't have any Black yoga teachers at your studio. And I can guarantee there are Black yoga teachers in your city. Yes. How are you making your studio diverse? And how are you educating your staff on anti-racism? Yes. Right? And you know, so it's just being truthful about where you are in this work and acknowledging that, right? It's okay to say, yes, I benefit from white privilege. Right. How can I use that platform for good? Right.
No, you're absolutely correct, because with any businesses, what are you doing to do some outreach? You know, and I've passed through a lot of yoga centers here in Phoenix that are like in the heart of South Phoenix. You know, and I've wondered, like, okay, you know, and I don't know the answer, but I'm just saying, like, you know, I wonder if they reach out to, you know, maybe the kids in the community. Do they teach them about yoga? But, you know, that's one way to practice your yamas is to go out of your center, you know, and see who's out there in your community that does not look like you and teach them. You know, do like a free 2-hour, you know, yoga practice outside of your community or something like that. That's one way of doing it. What do you think?
No, I definitely agree. I think that, and especially, I mean, when we think about how much, like I said this before, practicing at a studio is so expensive. Yeah. It's so expensive. So especially if you are in those particular communities, if your yoga membership is $100 a month, like, are you really serving that community? You know, or what are you doing, like you said, to offer yoga to people who maybe cannot afford it at your studio, or, you know, or things like that. I mean, it's just so many things that the yoga community can be doing. True. And they're just not. Yeah. They're just not.
I'm part of a lot of yoga groups on Facebook, and I was really proud of a lot of communities, yoga communities, I mean, outside of Arizona, that were doing a lot of stuff. I think one of them were raising money for the Black Lives Matter movement. And so all the benefits of their classes went to that, which is another avenue, you know, some of the centers can probably do. So yeah, there's so many ways that they can start getting involved. Yeah, there's no excuse.
None. Zero. I'm
Yeah,
not taking any.
right. I know. Yes. Well, thank you for bringing some awareness. You know, when you started doing yoga, do you have like family and friends that just, you know, went in and started doing yoga with you, or they were a little hesitant?
They were a little hesitant. They were a
Yeah.
little hesitant. But it's more so when I started teaching is when my family became more interested in practicing,
Okay.
because they wanted to be led by me.
Oh,
So that was, yeah, that was interesting. So like my brother-in-law, anytime, and my sister, anytime that I offer some type of class that wasn't like specifically my weekly classes at my studios, they're always there. My 7-year-old nephew, I got him to do yoga one time. That was enough for me, but I got him to do yoga one time. So yeah, my family, they definitely they didn't become interested until after I started actually teaching. But
yeah.
my friends, I would get, my friends would come, practice with me every now and again. But they were just like, this is hard. And I was like, I never told you that was going to be easy. I was like, we can go to a restorative, but for me, a restorative is hard because it's mental, right?
Yes.
Because we have to, the goal is to stay in the present. So like,
Yes.
if I'm in this pose for 5 minutes, I'm, thinking about my grocery list and,
That's true. That's true.
but yeah, but I always invite everybody to come. I'm never going to stop inviting them. Uh, but yeah, my family, they're like, no, I'm
Yeah.
okay with that. They will do like the breath work and the meditation,
Okay,
the
good.
physical
That's
practice.
important too. So,
Yeah, yeah.
yeah. So, what's next for you, Queen?
What is next? So, like I said, pre-COVID, I had my whole year planned with launching Sacred Spaces.
Yeah.
And so right now I'm just rediscovering what that means and what does Sacred Spaces yoga look like in this new
Okay.
normal.
Yeah.
So I'm just really trying to figure that out. But I'm taking this month of July to focus on self-study and things like that. So right now I am in 2 yoga trainings.
Oh,
I am
wow.
in the, I don't know who I think I am. I'm in the Black Lives Matter Rocket Yoga teacher training. And I am in Breathe for Change, which is a training certification to teach in schools, to teach yoga and
Oh, I
movement.
would love to learn more about that. Okay, so let's stop there. Can you give us a brief description on both in case no one has heard about either
Yes,
one?
yes. So the Black Lives Matter Rocket Yoga teacher training, we are really fresh. It's like week 1, so I can't tell you much about what Rocket Yoga is because I'm still learning that myself.
Yeah.
I know that it's a form of Ashtanga Yoga, but what happened is there's one here in Houston. Her name is Davina. She's, a prominent yoga instructor here. She actually has her own nonprofit called Melanin Yoga Project, where she offers yoga
Yeah.
to Black yoga communities and things like that. And she actually does Rocket Yoga and teaches Rocket Yoga. So there was this guy that she learned about Rocket Yoga from, reached out to her and said, hey, let's do a Rocket Yoga training for only Black people.
Okay.
And we're going to offer it as a pay what you can for $1 to $1,000 because yoga teacher training is very expensive.
Yes.
Um, and at first, I think it was like the first 100 people, and it's 2,000 of us.
Wow.
It's 2,000. And so not everyone is already a registered yoga teacher. It's some that, are just students. So they're taking this to maybe work towards their 200-hour, and you know, it's a handful of us that are already teachers. So it's a beautiful community. 2,000, after this training, we will have 2,000 Black people who are certified to teach Rakia yoga. Well, the other ones after they get their 100 hours. So I mean, that's 2,000
awesome.
more Black yoga teachers
Yes.
in this world.
I love it.
So that's beautiful. The second one is Breathe for Change, and this just popped up on my Facebook one day, and I took a look at it, and the very first thing that I saw was the diversity in their pictures. And I was like, let me see if they just put some Black people in their pictures or like these. I went to their website, and they, you know, for sure have all different type of ethnicities and ages and everything that go through their trainings. And it's a training that is certified to teach yoga and mindfulness to kids for school. So it's actually for educators.
Okay.
So that educators can implement yoga and mindfulness in their classrooms.
Now, is this one on a pay scale as well, or is it?
It's not.
Okay.
It's not. But they did have a payment plan.
Okay.
Payment plan. So I joined that one because I've always had a heart for children, or for teens rather. In my former days, I was a filmmaker and I had a teen.
Were you?
So I've always been drawn to the teen community, and I definitely want to have this, because teaching yoga to teens and teaching yoga to adults is very different, or teaching to children and teaching to adults is very different. So I wanted to learn the skills and avenues to be able to go into schools, because I truly think our children need, even if it's just the breath work piece and the mindfulness piece.
I'm so excited. It's called Breathe
for Change.
Breathe for Change. Okay. Mm-hmm. Awesome. I love both of them. Actually, I love all three. Holy Yoga, Rocket Yoga, and Breathe for Change.
Yes.
Oh my God, I have a lot of homework. I love it. So you're going to be busy.
I am. This month is going to be.
I am so excited for you. I'm so happy that, you know, we connected. Spirit is wonderful. You know, they always connect people for a reason. And I think that your message in regards to, you know, your journey, being a Black woman in this service, especially right now with the Black Lives Matter movement, with everything else going on in this world, I think your service is needed in the world. And I know. And so I can't wait to just see how your journey soars and grows and where it's going to lead to. I'm pretty sure it's going to be really exciting.
Oh, thank you. I hope so.
Is there anything else that you would like to add or discuss that perhaps we didn't touch on today?
I just want to, again, thank you for this opportunity. I was like, little old me, she want to interview little old me.
No, queen. I wanted to reach out to a queen.
So no, I just want to thank you for the opportunity. I just want to encourage everyone to find space in your heart to step on a yoga mat and just breathe and move. If you can breathe and move your body, you can do yoga.
Yes.
It's really just that simple. And I encourage everyone to just find space in their heart to do that.
Yes, that's beautiful. If someone's listening and they've never done yoga and they want to find a class that they want to just, you know, test it out, which class do you recommend?
I definitely recommend a beginner or foundations level class, where you can just learn the foundations of yoga and learn, like, I mean, just something like doing a sun salutation A. Okay. So maybe they can, you know, start there. I definitely recommend a beginner's level class.
Okay, awesome. Thank you. And you mentioned your social media accounts earlier, but can you announce them again, just in case?
Absolutely. So my personal Instagram, where you can see me and my nephew and everything else, is That's Queen to You. So that's Queen number 2 letter U. And my business page is Sacred Spaces Yoga on Instagram. And that's the best way to connect to me. Right now, I was working on my website, and then just DM me right now.
You have too much going on, so maybe that's going to take a back burner for a minute.
Yeah.
Well, my love, thank you so much for
Thank
blessing me
you.
the past, an hour I think we've been talking. It's been a pleasure. I hope that we still connect after this. And maybe you could come back and we can touch on something else in regards to, the Black Lives Matter movement, just anything that you think needs to be said.
Thank you. Absolutely.
All right, love.
Bye.
Thank you for listening. Please visit the website at www.leveluptribes.com. And please subscribe to the podcast and share with your family and friends. Be sure to tune in to our next episode. Catch you all next time, my beloved tribes.